is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and today we're reading Saturnastra Nalini. This is Chapter 2, Part 2. From the roof, my eyes shifted to another thing that caught my attention. It seemed to me that the place was cylindrical-like, with a cone for the roof. It had also four main windows, bordered by two minor windows. Beneath the southern window, there was a wooden door that led to the lower floors of the tower. The main door had a bolts and locks, and when I flew closer, I felt many locking enhancements. Towards the western window, I saw something that looked like his study, and it had a simple marble desk with a cushioned chair. And pressed against the walls, there was a wooden closet where he kept his attires. Behind it, there were niches filled with a bunch of scrolls. And knowing that he was magical, I was surprised to see that he had no spell components. Beneath the eastern window, I saw a tinier bed, and unlike the rest of the elven beds I had seen, this one's beds were charming pink. It had an interesting embroidery floral pattern. Its shape was also rectangular. At the foot of the bed, I found a toy box of sorts, and within there were a lot of cute porcelain dolls with their respective dresses, and there was also a lot of charming little figurines in the shape of forest animals. And pressed against the wall, there was a closet filled with little girl attires. Unlike the regular elfin wear, the closet was filled with dresses of all designs and patterns, and so had fashion that the Moorish ladies would wear. Others had more of a Victorian feel about it, and others were frilly, like the Greekish fashion that the nymph maidens adore. And despite the unique shape, these dresses had one thing in common. They were all made from the same silky fabrics created by the elves, and beside the bed there was a vanity desk with a mirror. And the main drawer was full of jewelry made of gold and other precious stones. Truly, the top of the tower was a beautiful gilded cage. My attention was distracted by a soft knock on the door, and the knock was repeated again, not once but twice. The unwelcome visitor thought to himself, "Good, he's asleep." His partner nodded in response, and I followed these visitors outside the tower, and when they entered the city, I suddenly lost them from my sight. It seemed to me that everyone was planning something or other that day. It was hard to tell apart the elves that I was training, and my niece friend too started following after me, and when she got close enough, she told me, "We should return. The elves are restless today, become restless when darkness falls." "You go on ahead," I said to my companion. She lingered a little, and then she said, "It's your funeral." I flew over the city in a hurry. Everyone looked suspicious in the darkness, and from time to time I was able to discern some dark shadows stalking the elves in the city. And when the sun finally left everyone was in their homes, I searched the vacant street, and from time to time I felt some odd presence in the darkness. However, they scurried away in a hurry before I could get a good look at them. Eventually, I felt two presents similar to the visitors of the high tower. Both were dressed in black robes stained with blood, and when I flew closer, I recognized one of them was the assassin that I had spared. These men were speaking in harsh, low tones, and my assassin said to his companion, "How could you lose one stupid girl? You were there too. This is much your fault as it is mine," snapped his companion. "I sent the Dark Ones to finish the job. With any luck, they will find her before the others do," said the assassin. "That is assuming that they choose to obey you," snorted the other. "Yes, with their kind you never know." My assassin's sentence was cut short. His attention was distracted by an odd noise he thought he heard, and after glancing about, all he heard was the beating of his own heart. The silence was deafening, and eventually both men's courage faded, and they decided to go their separate ways. They secretly hoped that their victim had bled to death. I flew in the direction that the elves had come from, and when I entered the forest, I took the form of a snow wolf. In my hurry, I had forgotten that this forest had no wolves. Regardless, I still needed a form that could help me track down the victim. Sniffing the air, I picked up a familiar scent. It was the scent of the cute maiden Nalini. I followed the scent that led me to a pool of blood, and there was signs of a futile struggle, and the branches, grass, and flowers were tainted with her blood. It was hard to imagine that so much blood could fit in such a tiny body. Close to the bushes, I sniffed the trail of blood, and as I went on, I found that it led to the river. Before its banks, I saw the blood trail end, and I assumed that the girl had gone into the water. Sick with worry, I ran down the side of the river, following its current, and in the darkness I could not see beneath its icy depths, and eventually the clouds parted to reveal the golden Titan moon. that night the moon was full, and its radiant golden light was like a second sun to me in the darkness. I was able to see across the river piers a piece of white cloth among some branches, and I jumped into the water and sweat and doggy paddled across, and when I reached the fabric, I caught wind swept before me, and Nalini's head was within it, and I forced my way through the branches that scarred my wolf's limbs, and in a clearing I saw some roads stained with blood. When I got closer, I saw that it was Nalini. Her breathing was labored and irregular, and she was clutching her belly with her left hand, and her right limb lifelessly beside her all bruised, and her pretty legs had many scratches and bruises, and she had literally ran for her life. And what most moved me were her sobbing eyes, and I lay beside her and felt her small frame shiver. Indeed, she thought I was the embodiment of death that had come for her, and to comfort her, I started licking her wounds, and Nalini seemed very agitated with my presence, and I felt that her consciousness was starting to fade. She took a deep breath and said in a quivering voice, "Father, help me, please." I felt the silence gathering around me. It was waiting to see me burst into action. It was shocked to see me hesitate, and I restrained my desire to help her. Yes, I could save her, however, that would not benefit me in the least. In a cold voice I said, "I can save you, but it will come at a very high price." Nalini took a deep breath and she responded, "The demon, get away from me." With tears running down her eyes, she said, "King, save me." Time, bro?
9 minutes.
In her final moments, her fear of death overcame her common sense, and I took the elf girl between my hands and gently rocked her in my arms, and as I did, I started performing the healing process, and I breathed my own life essence into her. After I said this, I kissed the maiden in the mouth, and I felt her entire being yielding to my influence, and when I was within her, I used my influence to make Nalini's soul go to sleep, and now two souls inhabited the same body, like she possessed her. Like demons do. The only difference was that mine was the dominant, also I believed that at first. At first, I could not see or hear anything, and it would take some time to completely assimilate myself into this new body. And while I rested, I wondered much on the life that I had led up to this point. And I was always relying on others for guidance, and it felt that it was easier to follow than to lead. Now that I was the master of my own fate, I was starting to regret all of the choices I made. And suddenly I became aware of a terrible pain in my chest. That pain was further complemented by other painful sensations all over my body. And from a distance I could hear a calm, soothing voice, and there was something strange yet familiar about the voice. It invoked in my mind, or should I say Nalini's mind, plans and memories at the edge of the forest, the gilded cage, and other delights, and the more I heard the voice, the less pain I felt. And amidst the darkness, I started to discern a light in the distance, and the light became brighter as time passed, and slowly I began to make out the shape and colors. And when my eyes focused, I was able to see the weary face of the elf king. He was rocking me gently in his arm, and there was a hint of sadness mixed with amazement in his voice. And based on his memory, he had followed the blood trail to this very spot, and instead of finding Nalini dead, he was surprised to see her in one piece. Eventually, he attributed her miraculous survival to the interventions of the goddess. Based on Nalini's memories, the elf king went by the name Al-Fasir, which was another way of saying elf king, or high king. Time, bro?
6 minutes.
The first heir to the throne was always called Al-Fasir. In his entire being, his whole identity was consumed by the prospect of being the ruler. As such, elf rulers never had a personal name. These common facts were supplemented by Nalini's personal knowledge of the Al-Fasir, and unlike the typical Al-Fasir, this one in specific had told her the name his true name, the one he had before he had become king. It was a secret that they both shared, and it made her feel closer to her king, and his true name was Grimir. And based on their marriage, I concluded that Grimir was not a noble birth, and I kept this conclusion as a forethought to myself. For the moment, I was more concerned with Nalini's own well-being, and when Grimir finished checking for wounds, he carried me back to the city. And Nalini's body lost consciousness on the way back, and it would seem that his flesh was more stubborn than I had first anticipated. And when I came to, I noticed that I was inside Nalini's room, and every little thing, from the torches to the dolls to the pearl necklace, carried within a memory fragment. And while lying in bed, I resolved not to rush until Nalini's body became truly my own. For 2 weeks I was bedridden, and during that time I was visited often by Nalini's mother, by Grimir, and Nalini's brother Danili. The only person who never bothered to check to see if I was breathing was Nalini's father, and my family did visit me, I always remained silent. Naturally, they assumed that I had gone mute because of the shock. Time, bro?
4 minutes.
Frankly, I did not want to speak to anyone until I became a master of my own voice, or should I say Nalini's voice. When I felt that the house was deserted, I would intone a song, and most of the time I would sing an aria, and I wanted to test the range of my influence over people's minds in my new body. And my first guinea pig was Danili, and when I said that we were home together, I would start singing, and his echo would be carried by the empty hallways, and in no time he was completely enthralled. After my first success, I hunted for bigger game, and across the hallway lay my father's study, and when I found myself alone with a man inside the house, I tried singing. At first I felt he was being enthralled, however, in no time he grew paranoid, and my link with him was severed. Apparently mages were harder to control, and I tried the same trick with my mother, that is to say, Nalini's mother, and she too wasn't enthralled. Although she was mighty pleased to hear me sing. Recognizing my limitations made me regret leaving behind my flute and my robes that augmented my abilities. One night I felt a gentle clicking sound by my window, and in no time everything grew silent, and the silence allowed me to better note the presence of the intruder, and softly he walked on the marble floor. And judging by his footsteps, I was able to recognize an assassin, and before he was dressed in white, like before he was dressed in dark, in black. And under the moonlight, I was able to see the glare of the silver dagger, and disdainfully I said to the man, "You have a lot of nerves coming here." Bro, time?
2 minutes, 30 seconds.
The fight of finding me within the bed made my assassin drop the dagger, and it made a hollow clang sound in the floor. And the assassin swiftly recovered his weapon, and he shifted, and I felt his eyes wide in the darkness. He seemed quite distracted by my presence. He hesitated before asking, "What are you doing here? Where is Nalini?" With Nalini's voice and my voice, I said, "I am right here." The elf held a small crystal globe in his hand, and he said a small word of magic that made it levitate, while emitting a white timid light. Indeed, he was able to see that there was no one else in the room, and he studied my face for a while. Eventually, he concluded that I had indeed taken over Nalini's body, or that I had stolen her appearance, since Nalini was possibly dead. While he observed me, he wondered much on whether he should slay me or not, or whether he could. He gave a sigh of frustration. After dousing the light, he walked towards the window in an effort to leave my presence. He wondered much on how he would explain his failure to his patrons, and before he lifted the window, I said to him, "My assassin, I have a task for you. Depending on your results, I might not have to kill you." The assassin sat on the edge of the bed, smiling. He asked, "Can you truly kill me? My master will still be able to revive me if you slay me." "I have my doubts. You may have powerful healing magic, but you also are neither immortal nor necromancers," I responded. The term necromancer gave the elf a lot to think about, and he thought much on the nature of necromancy, and for some reason he imagined that the elf seer might be a necromancer. Then again, for ages, the elves had only known one type of magic. It is natural for them to assume that everything they do is pure and pristine and white magic. However, what if he dismissed the rest of the thought altogether? It was pointless for him to allow such a train of thought, and the mere fact that he was questioning the teachings of the Alphaseer was anathema. The assassin was the first one of us to break the silence. Time, bro?
Less than a minute.
Alright, we'll continue this adventure later. Bye-bye and God bless.